Hello, hello, hello. It's Lily Enrique here, parenting strategist from the Parent Support Network, coming in today with episode 24 of Parent Support Network TV. I hope you are doing well. If you are catching us live, hello and welcome to you. I've got it on my phone here, but I can't see if anybody is on. If you are catching the replay, once again, a huge welcome to you. So, most weeks when I jump on to do my TV episodes, the topic comes out of something that's popped up, in the recent days prior. And this time it was a post that I actually watched from another parenting coach who was talking about control, talking about self-control, so children controlling themselves, but also talking about parents controlling their children, which I thought was interesting. So from both a parent's perspective and a teacher's perspective, the word control is definitely one that I've used a lot over the years. I remember back in my classroom days definitely saying, hey, these kids are out of control, or I need to control these kids better, or how do I control these kids? Or it might have been a good day where, phew, the kids are, I've got control today. And I never really thought about the meaning of that word until our beautiful parenting coach came along. So for those of you who know a bit about our story, or who have heard, some of our other shares, that we were at a crisis point when our youngest son was about 13 to 15, and we came across a parenting coach in the States. We never have actually met him. We've never actually seen him. They were all telephone consults we did for about 18 months to 2 years way back when our son was, 15 to 16. And he's now, yes, in his late 20s. So it was a while ago, right? But my book, my favorite book, The Revolting Child, A Blessing in Disguise, actually came out of us meeting Frank and being mentored and coached for him for all of that time. At the time we met him, as I said, we were in absolute crisis. We had awful relationships. They were dysfunctional. They were not pleasant. They weren't good. And it wasn't because we didn't have all the love in our heart, for our son or for both of our sons. It's just because we didn't know what we didn't know. And you've heard me use this term many, many times now, but we were parenting upside down. So when we actually my husband actually saw a recorded seminar on an old VHS video one day in the counsellor's offices, where it actually said down the spine of the VHS how to handle the revolting child. And my husband was so blown away by the information on this video that, he asked, who is this person? How do we find out more? It was obvious that he was American. It was obvious that it was pretty old by the delivery of the seminar and the way the people were presented. And basically nobody knew who it was or where it came from. And anyway, because of our inquiries, about a week or so later, would you believe, we got a phone call from the States. I won't try the American accent, but hey, it's Frank here. I believe you need me. And Frank was the guy who was presenting the information on the VHS video. And he was talking all about the way we connect and communicate and relationship with each other, and particularly with our children. He himself had many and varied roles, but one of them was to support and coach parents and families of kids in crisis. So he used to work with street kids, gang members, just very dysfunctional families. I think our family was probably pretty mild compared to some of the ones that he dealt with. So upon watching his video after Andrew did, and then upon coaching with Frank, I had this huge passion to share our journey and our story. So for those of you who have read this book, the first half of it is about our son from birth, right through to his primary school years. And then, the latter part of this is in his secondary school years, and us meeting Frank and learning from Frank. So when I heard that word control the other day, total transparency, it kind of triggered me a little bit and took me back to our coaching with Frank. And Frank loved to define words. So he defined words in his own way. Sometimes They were similar to the dictionary definitions, and sometimes they were actually quite different. And even though I was a teacher and I understood language and, you know, knew what words meant, I had never really looked at things the way that he explained them. So I'm actually going to talk about control, but I'm going to share with you some of the definitions that Frank taught us, which really changed the whole trajectory of the way we were relationship and communicating and talking to our son, hence, you know, the awesome results that we got over the period of time. So he says, when you are controlling a child, it means to cause emotion by force. So, you know, what does that mean, to cause emotion by force? Do you like being forced? As an adult, I'm sure your answer is no to that. Do you like being controlled? I'm sure your answer is no to that, and neither do children. So he basically suggested that we need to gain cooperation from our children instead of controlling, which means to operate in the same direction you are. And interestingly, my following book from the Revolting, well, let me get that into my following book from the Revolting Child was If You Want Kids to Cooperate, Just Ask, because really the whole premise of that is we can't control kids and they don't want to be controlled anyway. And if they do allow you to control them for a period of time, there will come a point where they go, now it's my turn. And I'll quickly share this story. Some of you may have heard it already, but Frank shared with us about, you know, one of his other clients that he was working with, a single mum who had a young teenager boy, a young teen boy. And this boy decided one day to, it's in America, so, you know, use your imagination, got hold of some sort of automatic weapon, machine gun or something, and literally shot up his house. He didn't shoot any people, but he literally shot up the couches, the house, the furniture and everything when his mum wasn't there. And when the mother was actually counselling with Frank, and Frank, you know, was asking her questions and so forth, the mother actually said, well, I don't know what was wrong. I've always been able, you know, he was a good kid. I've always been able to control him. And that was a key word in what she said. I've always been able to control him. And now all of a sudden, you know, he's out of control. And then when Frank actually went to speak with the young teen and asked from his perspective was, well, I've been controlled for long enough, so now it's my turn. So because he was now bigger in stature, you know, more confident, he said, now it's my turn. So that was his way of showing his mum that he was not going to be controlled anymore. Rather dramatic, right? But look, kids do different things, don't they? When they don't want to be controlled, they run away from home, or they threaten to run away from home. They retreat. They spend their lives in their bedroom. They don't want to communicate, relationship and connect with their parents or their family. They go out and seek relationship from people outside of the home who may not be positive role models because they're looking for a place to belong where they're not feeling controlled, even though sometimes they probably are if they get into certain situations. So yeah, so that's what he said control means. I'll read you some of his other definitions because I find them really quite fascinating. So revolt, so the book is called The Revolting Child. So revolt means to treat someone with coldness, indifference and discourtesy. So when you see a child coming home and treating their parents with coldness, and I hear this a lot, it means that they're like a withholding of affinity or lack of love. So indifference, he says, means you are treated just like you are the table or the chair or anyone else in the world. So sometimes kids and teens particularly feel like they're being treated with indifference, so they don't feel like they're really seen or heard or listened to in various ways. Discourtesy, so how often do we say our children are discourteous? Well, discourtesy means behaviour bordering on rudeness or intending to make someone else afraid of you. So sometimes it could be the parents being discourteous to the children or vice versa. I'm literally just reading through some definitions here. Anger means that revenge is coming in the future. And obviously with that story with that young teen, he was angry. He was angry that, you know, he had felt controlled, that he maybe wasn't being heard by his mum, that she was trying to tell him what to do, how to do it, when to do it. And so that anger then meant that there was revenge coming in the future. Nagging, how often do we nag as parents, right? Nagging means to repeatedly badger. And then he goes on to define badger. Badger means to pester a person with continual communication and cause confusion. So then we talked about, the word threat. Threat means to tell the person that their future is in danger and that something bad is going to happen that makes the present and future unsafe. So how often do we threaten our children? If you don't do this, then that will happen. If you don't behave, then I'll tell your dad. If you don't do such and so, then you won't be going out, to whatever. Or if you don't do this, you won't get that. Like, there's so much threatening that happens in the home, unfortunately, just because, once again, parents just don't know how else to deal with the situation. Force is getting a person to do something while they are resisting you. So force is a little bit like control, trying to get someone to do something while they're resisting you. So once again, as an adult, do you like to be forced? No, we don't. Right. So, it's another one of those things when we're trying to force the children to do something or comply or cooperate, behave or follow the rules. We can't actually force people to do anything. We can do our best to encourage them to gain cooperation so that they will want to assist, but we cannot force them. And if we do force them, it's usually with control. It's usually in a way that makes the child fearful if they don't follow whatever you're saying, that they're in some sort of fear. Puberty means fully grown, fully ripe, ready to reproduce. And it's interesting because he says in our modern world, we seem to have interchanged the meaning of puberty with a new word called adolescence, which means not mature, not fully grown. So isn't that interesting? And I know that in some, societies and communities around the world, puberty happens as young as, 12 and 13 years old, where, people at that age are then given the rite of passage into adulthood, which seems very young, I know. Authority is the right someone has to force obedience. So sometimes we say as parents, well, we should have authority, or as educators as well, right? We should have authority over our children. Listen to the definition again. Is the right someone has to force obedience. Obedience, this is a good one, means making a person docile and compliant. So how often, once again, do we say, we want our children to be obedient, but do we really want them to be docile and compliant? Do you want them to be docile and compliant as adults? No. So why would you want them to be docile and compliant as children? Compliance suggests a weakness of character that allows another to yield meekly to another's requests or demands. What else have we got here? Train. I need to train my children to behave in a certain way. Train is to condition a person for obedience. And remember, obedience means making a person docile or compliant. Here's another one. Condition. Condition means to set up a stimulus response mechanism so you can do something and the other person immediately reacts and obeys you. So suppress is to try to put a person in a position when he will not fight you back. And once again, sometimes children feel like they are being suppressed, right? That they are in a position where they're not able to share their point of perspective or their view. Slavery. I love his definition of slavery. Slavery is asking or making someone do something without saying please. It's expecting obedience. And I remember him telling us that a slave has only one purpose in life. Can you guess what that is? What would be the slave's purpose in life for their master or the person who's trying to control them? To destroy the master. Okay, so so he talks a lot about definitions and what words mean. There's a whole bunch of them in the latter part of my book. Restrain means the use of strong force or authority in preventing action. And once again, we hear people say, well, we might need to restrain the person or restrain the child. Harass means to trouble by repeated attacks. Resent means to show displeasure. How many times do we show displeasure to things that our children do or say? Impatience means, this is a really interesting one. He went on to share this in more detail. So impatience means you're not you're not worth waiting for. So sometimes when kids keep us waiting, they do that because they don't feel like they are worthy, and they keep us waiting because they want to feel worthy, right? Which is interesting. Love. Love is the ability not to drop your affinity for another person and to keep it there under any circumstances. And of course, if we're talking about unconditional love, that is absolutely not to drop your affinity and to keep it there under any circumstances. Tolerance is the ability not to show disapproval or disagreement to another person. So yeah, there's more and more of them there, but you can read those yourself. So back to control. How long have we got? Oh, we haven't got long. So back to control, and once again, I did a bit of Googling on, just to compare Frank's definition to the dictionary definition. So the dictionary definition in the verb sense is control means to exercise restraining or directing influence over. So once again, when you really think about that word, do we want to be controlling our children? And I guess if you think about self-control, that's a little bit different because we're choosing to use self-control. For example, it might be, self-control over our anger, or self-control over, eating well, or substances and things like that. The other definition, dictionary definition, is to have power over. Once again, nobody wants that, right? Not as an adult, not as a child, not as a teen or an adolescent. Psychological control refers to intruding into children's emotional and psychological development. Controlling parents, and you may admit or acknowledge that you are a controlling parent, or that sometimes you are controlling, or you tend to have that natural knack of being controlling. Controlling parents are non-responsive to their children's emotional and psychological needs. They constrain, invalidate, and manipulate the kids' psychological experiences. Psychological control is the extent to which parents try to control the child's emotional state or beliefs. For example, they may use guilt induction or make the child feel they won't be loved if they don't do what parents want. The core of psychological control is that it assaults the child's self. So that's also, the manipulative parent, as well as the more aggressive and the controlling type of parent. So what's an example of a controlling parent? I'm sure you get the gist of it now, but it could be withholding love, affection, or approval when a child fails to meet their standard. And I think, often we do this kind of inadvertently or without even thinking about it. It's a sign of a controlling parent. For example, if a parent only ever hugs or praises their child when they get good grades or do something well, that's a form of conditional love and also the sign of a controlling parent. And that's why in the Nurtured Heart approach, I love so much that we are looking for all of the opportunities to embrace and their greatness and look for the qualities that we see in our children all the time, not just waiting for them to do something that we like or that we want to praise them then, but to actually look for opportunities to help build them as a person. Signs of controlling parents include demand blind obedience and conformity. Do not allow children to participate in or question the parent's decisions. So it's kind of that, my way or the highway. I'm the parent, you're the child, you listen, what I say goes. And how often do you hear that scenario? They don't let their children make their own decisions, or at least, have a discussion and some sort of compromise around decision making. Do not encourage choice or independence. So they basically just tell the children what to do. Dictate every aspect of the child's life, and even helping the child without being asked is down there as an aspect of a controlling parent. So really, really interesting, isn't it? I hope that you found that interesting today. I know that when I started learning the actual meanings of those words, it really made you look at it from a very, very different perspective. So the Nurtured Heart approach, as you know, is something that I'm truly passionate about. I've been doing courses now over the last few years, back-to-back courses. I've just finished one. I'm about to start another one in June, in the first or second week of June. This time, however, it's going to be quite different because I'm going to be doing a 24-week immersion, a VIP immersion, so 6 months. So I actually didn't think about doing that. One of my clients actually suggested it, that certain parents who are really needing that support and hand-holding support really need it over a longer period of time. And I have found through my shorter courses, so my 9-week course, for example, that it's okay for some parents. They get what they need from that if they're just wanting to kind of tweak their parenting and improve their parenting. But for the parents of the really intense and more intense and more challenging and demanding children, often they need more ongoing support and nurturing and being in a community of like-minded people where they don't feel like they're the only ones. I know when I was parenting my younger son, when things were very stressful, I felt so alone. I would have loved to have been in a supportive community of people who understood what I was going through and also had similar issues that, we could, share and discuss and find solutions and answers for. So that's why I'm super excited about my 6-month course. If you're interested in finding out more, just reach out. There are so many inclusions. It will run for 24 weeks. So we'll be doing a week of learning or content and education, and then we'll be doing a week of reflection, of Q&A, of AMA, Ask Me Anything, discussion, so that we can all once again learn from each other in the group situation. There are consultations from myself, consultations from Nathan, there are resources included, nutritional supplements included. Yeah, as I said, a health consult from naturopath Nathan, one-on-ones with me. There's a whole bunch of stuff. The course book, Transforming the Intense Child Workbook, and I'm actually just this morning ordering some of these, more of these from the States. My whole resource pack of my 6 books and 3 subliminal CDs, etc., will be included. So yeah, a bunch of stuff included to help really support parents. So we are looking to start that, as I said, in the first or second week of June. So if you are interested in learning more about what I'm going to be doing, or you'd like to just have a conversation with me about it, please just reach out. I'm happy to have a chat with you. The course may or may not be a fit for you. You may or may not be a fit for our course, or vice versa as well, right? We may not be a fit for you. But by having a conversation, we can at least discuss that and see if we do align and if it will be beneficial for us to work together. So please do reach out and let me know if that is of interest. It's only about 2 to 3 weeks time we'll be starting. So please, do reach out to have that conversation in the meantime. So that's it from me today. Lily and Ricky, parenting strategists from Parent Support Network, equipping parents to enjoy happy and healthy children and relationships on purpose. Bye for now. Catch you next week.